is happening, Stokastic baseball fans? Terry McBride here, recovering from a bout of, I don't know if it was COVID or just a cold or whatever it was, but at least I'm conscious this Saturday on time. This is great. We're rocking and rolling here. And I've got my pal GUNDACKER with me again. He's all prepped up, ready to analyze this slate. We got a 9-gamer in the afternoon. Gun, how you doing, buddy?
Here, happy Saturday. I'm good. At the bottom of my screen right now, it has the temperature. Mine says 104. I'm sure Tyler can attest, but I'm inside because I will not be caught outside today.
Yeah, no, that's not fit for man nor beast to be outside. That's pretty rough, man. I think it's like 84, 85 here. It's not so bad over here, but it's like once
2
again warm in here, but yeah. Yeah, seriously. I've got a whole fan hooked up in here in the office now. It's a little bit cooler than it was last week when I was sweating and dying. I didn't really account for it, like it's going to be blowing in my eyes a little bit. So we'll see how I do with my contacts. If I'm blinking a lot, that's why during the show. But hey, you guys aren't here to hear about this. We're brought to you by Odd Shopper. We're here to talk about the baseball slates. We're going to talk, like I said, about the 9-game afternoon slate. It's the main slate on FanDuel. It's basically the main slate on DK, although they're calling their 4-gamer night slate the main slate. But the bigger prize pool is in the afternoon one. It's a $50K to top first $15 one. So that's going to be the focus here. We'll try and cover maybe a little overview, I think, Gun, after the once we hit lock, we'll cover like that 4-gamer as like an overview, maybe answer any questions people have, a couple minutes on it. But our focus here, guys, is going to be on that the main FanDuel and the afternoon DK slate. We're brought to you by Odd Shopper. Like I said, hit the like down there, hit the subscribe, make sure you get all the different tools and content from Awesemo. Hitting the like helps us out a lot. Hitting the subscribe helps you out a lot. It's free stuff up on the site today. MLB ownership projections, which is handy for this show, and MMA fighter rankings, which is handy for what's coming up later on. I just saw, actually, before the show started, some lady fighter in the MMA. I don't know her name, and the message isn't on my phone anymore.
I want to say it was Nunez, but I don't remember.
I think it was Nunez. Yep. I know nothing about MMA. Nunez scratch, so get her out of your lineups. We've also got a special live before lock offer with BetMGM. Just bet $10 on any MLB money line tonight, and you'll win $200 for free. That's bet $10 on any money line, and you get $200. You don't even have to win the bet. That's pretty sweet. So
Yankees.
Yeah, there you go. That's a pretty solid one, right? Just any money line, even if it's not bad. Click the link down there. There's a link down in the description. Claim your $200 now from BetMGM. That's a pretty solid offer. Combine that with Odd Shopper too, you guys. Jump over there and you can actually pick out a good money line to bet on with Odd Shopper. You put those two things together, now you're making money hand over fist. It's not too difficult. Odd Shopper and BetMGM. We'll talk a little bit more about Odd Shopper later on. We'll talk about the promo code MLB Live later on. Lots of good stuff going on at Stokastic. But Gun, what do you think of this slate overall? A lot of lefties pitching on this slate, I noticed when I was putting things together, but that was my main overarching thought. I didn't put too much effort into coming up with something. What are you seeing overall for this slate?
Which of the 5, the DK early? I guess we should call it our focus today, right? The DK early.
Yeah. DK early FanDuel main. Yeah.
Definitely not a shortage of southpaws today, but it's also Brandon Woodruff against usually a lot of lefties in that lineup. Yep, a lot of lefties. So I've been missing the last couple of days, I don't know about you, of having that true ace guy. And yesterday, McClanahan wasn't on the main slate. So it's nice to have an ace that maybe I could feel a little bit better about going heavy on. But past him, it gets pretty wishy-washy pretty quick here. Valdez, I think we're going to get to because of the matchup. But he's dealing with an extreme amount of negative leverage. And then we're, on to Carrasco and Kyle Wright. So it's going to be, I think, a lot of tricky situations to navigate to, but there are some opportunities at positive leverage today that I think we can get some leans on, guys like Kyle Wright, guys like Hunter Green, stuff like that. So I think we'll have a strong process when it's all said and done.
I like it. I think so too. And yeah, you nailed, not Alexa. I said, I think so. She hears everything and just goes off. It's crazy. I don't know if you guys can hear that on the show. But yeah, you just rattled off like the top several pitchers that I'm kind of into on this slate. There's a couple other guys that maybe I'll grab shares of, but I get pretty weird with pitching a lot of the time. And there's just a lot of guys that I don't really want to mess around with on this slate. So we'll talk it through. Let's kind of dive right in. Guys, hit the like, hit the subscribe. It helps us out, like I said before. But let's jump into the first game on deck. We got the Twins going up against the Rangers in Texas. Devin Smeltzer on the mound, the lefty for the Twins. Martin Perez on the mound for the Rangers. Lefty action here. Perez not getting all that much ownership. Smeltzer not getting very much at all, but I don't think he really deserves any. But talk to me about Perez. He's had an okay season, decent numbers in terms of the xFIP. The strikeout rate isn't exactly high, but it's 19.8%. It's a little bit below average, but I mean, he's capable of finding some strikeouts. What do you like about these pitchers? Are you rostering either one of them?
I mean, Martin Perez, he was Framber Valdez before Framber Valdez was cool. I mean, I like the fact that he's under 8K. I don't like the matchup very much, but we can get a little bit forgiving of the spot because of his price points, 8,700. We can live with the 16-ish fantasy points, so that can kind of erase a couple of errors. Last game, he gave up 2 bombs. He usually doesn't give up multiple homers in a game, but in this particular spot, we are worried about Buxton, Correa, Kyle Garlick, all those guys that could put bat on ball against Perez. So I'm kind of it's not an extreme scumdacker spot because I don't think I'll go crazy with the twin stack here, implied for less than 4 or about 4 right now. But it is one of those spots where I have both sides, but using our top pitcher tool, we get a little bit of positive leverage on Martin Perez. And on these weird slates, positive leverage means a little bit more to me. So I'm fine with kind of matching our top percentage with 14-15%. Roll it out there. I might get to a little bit more just because I might cut at the knees a little bit on some of the high owned guys, the Carrascos and Valdez's. Yeah. But I think he's worth rostering, and I think his price point is giving us a soft landing. If he doesn't have a 25-point game, we can live with 16.
Yeah, I think that makes some sense, and he's definitely one of those guys that we can target for a little bit of leverage, like you said, to take a few of those Carrasco shares, for example, and just, like you said, and just put them toward Martin Perez, pick up a little bit of leverage. There's another positively leveraged pitcher that I think is also in a good situation in Kyle Wright, who's similarly priced. So I think if you're spreading between those two, they're the top 2 ranked positively leveraged pitchers on the board. So I do think Martin Perez is at least interesting here, but I'm with you. I think I would definitely be rostering some Twins here. And it doesn't look like the field is really responding to that. They're all owned in the single digits on both sites. So that becomes kind of an interesting spot to me. The thing about Perez, if we're rostering bats against him, he's only got a 0.98% home run rate this season, 36.3% hard hit, only a 3.3 barrel over 100 innings. That's a sustained sample at this point. So he's not allowing a lot of power, not allowing a lot of home runs. Is that a concern for you in rostering Twins? And does that make you a little bit more confident maybe in rostering Martin Perez?
It is a concern, but it's not zero. And like you said, the Twins are pretty decently low owned. As a stack, we're looking at 2% ownership share. So I don't have to give up much equity to be there, even if I'm matching the field. But if I want to match our top stack percentage, 4 or 5%, I think that's fair too. 4 or 5% to be at both sides, and both sides we don't have to give up a ton to be there, and we can create that range of outcome to be successful. I'm in. I like how little we have to give up to be on both sides. But yes, Martin Perez is not somebody I would ever go out of my way in like single entry to give up homers. But as you see in the last game where he gave up 2, it's not impossible. So the Garlicks, the Buxtons, guys like that can lift the baseball, chip in a chair, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's why they're worth getting to. We've seen these guys mash and hit home runs for quite a sustained while now. So we know who the bats worth getting to over there are, but we'll talk about it in just a sec. Any reason to roster Devin Smeltzer on either site?
Right now, I don't plan on it.
Yeah, not on DK at 71, not on FanDuel at 84. I just don't see it. 15.5% strikeout rate, 4.74 xFIP for anybody wanting to put some numbers around that. So does that lead you into any shares of the Rangers? They're similarly low owned. Everybody, again, below 5% on both sides.
Yeah, and I think I've told you a couple times, I'm usually higher on the Rangers than the rest of the world. I like this lineup for fantasy. And one thing to watch out for, this is going to be our last couple days to roster Mitch Garver. He's going to call it a season on Monday and get surgery, but he specifically wanted to play against the Twins. He's batting third against the lefty. I can get down with that, but 1 through really 1 through 6 I can get involved with. Cole Calhoun can make a couple of lineups. Culberson against lefty, sure, but I don't know that he's long for this game as soon as Smeltzer gets out. So absolutely sign me up for some Rangers. I'm in, and that Twins bullpen is something that I'm not running from either.
Yeah, I think that makes a ton of sense. And I'm on basically those same hitters. I mean, we've got Adolis Garcia sitting in the middle of that lineup as well. Corey Seager, nobody's unfamiliar with those names. I think everybody can get there on their own. Is there anybody else that's like sneaky for you in that lineup? Like I might even throw in a few shares of Leody Taveras, sneakily 45% hard hit for Leody, 273, 293. You'll want to see that on base percentage come up with his blazing speed, but he's at least somewhat frisky if he's putting bat on ball and hitting the ball hard, because anything in the gap, and he's seeing several, terms around the bases. So anybody from like the bottom end of the lineup that you're specifically targeting?
Not specifically, but I'm in agreement. I think Taveras is definitely somebody that can produce some fantasy points when he gets on. And if you're the type to roster the Giants with confidence, Culberson maybe not be off limits, one swing and he's there. Sure. But I just worry about 9-hole home hitters that are platooned out. That just scares me. But I do think, if you homer in your first at bat, you're a great play. So sure. if you have a larger risk tolerance than I do, I don't think Culberson's necessarily off limits, but it's definitely one of my least favorite options of the 9.
Yeah, it makes sense. And like you said, if you're going to the 9-hitter and the home team's 9-hitter, you're probably sacrificing a plate appearance, maybe a plate appearance plus, but he is a $2,300 multi-position option on DK, flat minimum third baseman on FanDuel. So you got to get lucky with that first one, but maybe. On the Twins side of things, we've got the superstar Byron Buxton at the top. Brian, geez, my brain is rattled. Byron Buxton at the top, 6,200 on DK, only 3,700 on FanDuel for Byron Buxton, under 5% owned. That's sitting there as like a one-off calling to me against basically any pitcher. We already talked about Perez's home run rate, but I'm not really concerned with a hitter like Buxton. Outside of him, who else are you looking at on the Twin side? You already named a couple guys before, but anybody like specific you want to call out?
Yeah, on FanDuel, Cog Garlic is almost free at 2,300. 333 ISO against lefties in the major league level. I don't know how I couldn't paint that as a guy that's going to be one of my higher owned one-offs, even considering the Perez ground ball rate. Polanco's in the mix as well. 1 through 4 is my favorite, but Kyle Garlic is way too cheap, probably on both sides, but definitely FanDuel.
Like it, definitely like it, and I'll always throw Gary Sanchez into the mix. $2,500 on FanDuel, $3,700 on DK, 3.1% owned catcher, 16.8% barrel rate, 47.9% hard hit, 9 homers on the season, 190 ISO. It's not the greatest power numbers in the world, but that's a capable bat if we're searching for home runs at a kind of a key position that's going to be super low owned. Let's move on to the next one. I've got the Angels against the Orioles. Patrick Sandoval going for the Angels, drawing a little bit of attention on DK, around 18%, 7,400. He's 9,400 on FanDuel, also drawing mid-teens ownership over there. So that's kind of an interesting spot. Maybe a potential differentiator on the FanDuel slate, depending on how this one goes. Could be a big swing point. On the other side, Dean Kremer going for the Orioles. 3.2% owned, $7,600 option. Potentially a good strikeout matchup for him. 17% strikeout rate for him on the season, though. 8,300 on FanDuel. I'm not getting too much of them over there. Is there any reason to get to Kramer on the DK slate? And then how much Sandoval are you getting to on either side?
I mean, if like you said, if you were really saying, hey, this is a good strikeout spot, and the Angels have been, this is kind of what people allowed to happen to put them on Tyler Wells yesterday, and Wells didn't really produce. I think he had 3 or 4 strikeouts. So Kremer, if you believe in him more than his metrics do, sure, the matchup does produce strikeouts, but this is a tougher matchup. Trout, Ohtani, Ward, Walsh as a 2 through 4, and then of course if VR does happen to get on base in that leadoff spot, we know he can swipe a bag. And I think this is one of many revenge games for him as well, if you're into that. So I've little interest in Kremer. Almost, I'll probably none. I don't have any right now.
I think that's perfectly fair. Yeah, let's talk Sandoval.
Sandoval is a little bit more hopeful in terms of actually earning strikeouts, where Kremer's at 17% on the season. Sandoval is closer to 24% and has a 12.5% swing and strike rate. So he can get them. Again, this Orioles lineup, I'm giving them respect, man. They've put together a crew that I don't run out of my, like, in April, let's pitch against the Orioles, right? Not the case right now. This is a tough, scrappy squad, and they're pretty healthy. And Adley Rutschman's in this lineup today, so that 1 through 6 is pretty doggone tough. So I will have some Sandoval just because of the potential 1-4 strikeout rate for him, but a little bit of both sides are going to be in my player pool today, and the Orioles side, I think we had them at the could be pretty fun, because if Sandoval's not long for this one, the Angels bullpen has been one of the top bullpens in terms of home runs allowed. So I could get behind maybe a Orioles stack, and maybe it's a day late because I was on them last night and I didn't really get the dividends as I was looking for. So I'll play both sides of Sandoval and Orioles. I'll probably sit out Creamer.
Yeah, that's one that kind of stood out to me this morning when I was putting things together. I said, it tickled my brains just saying, these right-handed Orioles up at the top there, kind of interesting, maybe something to keep an eye on. And looking at it now, everybody in the lineup 1% owned, going up against Patrick Sandoval, who 23.8% strikeout rate, a 1.29% home run rate is very good. He's been good at limiting hard hit. But I mean, we're not talking about Brandon Woodruff here. We're not talking about Garrett Cole here. We're talking about Patrick Sandoval. There's no reason to expect that the Orioles can't get to this guy. So with their prices, with their ownership, that's an intriguing spot to me. So let's talk a little bit more specifically through that Orioles lineup. Cedric Mullins up at the top, Trey Mancini. There's a lot of righty power after the, in Trey Mancini, and then with the 3 and 5 hitters there. So talk to me about your favorite hitters outside of, you mentioned Adley Rutschman, the catcher, hitting 6th, but who are you looking at specifically 1 through 6 there to stack?
Really, Mountcastle and Austin Hayes are my favorite guys to hunt out for some power, specifically against this spot. And Hayes might be a little bit more likely to put bat on ball, just a 16% K rate against lefties since the beginning of last year. So those two stand out a lot. I think Mountcastle and Mancini on one of the sites, you have to kind of choose between the two. At one point they had put Mancini on DraftKings as first base, and so is Mountcastle. So that's kind of annoying. So I guess Spindle will make a deal on that. I kind of lean the Mountcastle way, but on FanDuel, I guess you don't have to worry about that. But specifically Mountcastle and Austin Hayes.
Yeah, 2 first basemen, 2 third basemen in the lineup today for the Orioles on the DK slate. So it makes it interesting to stack that team. On FanDuel, you get a little bit of flexibility because we've got the util, but it's actually 3 first basemen on the FanDuel slate because Nevin's a first baseman on FanDuel. So you still do have to make a choice, but it's kind of easy to leave Tyler Nevin off of the out of the equation there. So you can play everybody kind of together that you want to on the FanDuel side of things. I agree, by the way, Ryan, Mountcastle and Austin Hayes. I was trying to leave that answer on the table for you when I was teeing it up because those are the 2 key right-handed hitters that I want to get to there. What about the Angels? We've got the 2 obvious superstars, Mike Trout, Shohei Ohtani in the middle there. You ran through them quickly when we were talking about the pitcher on the other side, but more specifically, who are we looking to if we're stacking Angels? And are you stacking Angels? Because it does look like they're drawing a little bit of attention here on both sides.
Yeah, I always, without a doubt, I always have the Substack, and usually I don't even have to set nothing. My projections will just give it to me. We've got them at 6% ish. So, yeah, I think that's a low enough number to get behind some Mike Trout. Are you seeing 6%? That's what I'm seeing, right? Let me pop it up here. So I guess it's probably
on that's the FanDuel one. So yeah, probably 6-7%.
Yeah, and it's I imagine it's super top heavy on 2 guys drawing all that ownership. So getting past those 2 main guys, it'd probably be the VRs, the Wards, and the Jared Walshes. And we know this park is a little harder for righties to get out of the yard. Trout got out the yard yesterday, but it was like pesky pole levels of getting out the yard. He found the one spot in left field that isn't a mile back. So
and that's Mike Trout. you gotta be Mike Trout to be able to hit the pesky pole there now. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah,
nice changes to your park, Baltimore.
So Jared Walsh being the power lefty in that ballpark, probably the guy that isn't Ohtani or Trout that I would probably want to get to and look for some power.
I like that call. And actually looking at the individual ownership, it's really only Trout. Trout's pulling above, it's pulling 14.4 on DK, 13.2 on FanDuel. Just give that one out because it's Mike Trout and everybody knows he's going to be popular. Everybody else is below 10%. So it's not like these guys are overwhelmingly popular. So it's another playable spot. Let's move on. We do need to pick up a little bit of time here. Probably we spent a little bit on those games. So Framber Valdez going for the Astros against the lousy Oakland Athletics with Zach Logue on the hill. Another lefty-lefty matchup. Framber drawing a ton of ownership on both sides, 40% on FanDuel, 40% on DK, 9,700 on DK, 10,700 on FanDuel. He's one of my top projected pitchers. A lot of it comes from the matchup. We know he's not the biggest strikeout pitcher in the world, but 22.6% strikeout rate. We love everything he does with suppressing power, keeping the ball on the ground. How much Framber are you getting to? Are you concerned at all about his ownership, or is he just worth it here?
I definitely don't love two pitchers at half owned. And it's just like I almost feel compelled to choose one pitcher to take and one pitcher to undercut. But in this spot, these are both pretty solid options and solid matchups. And I just don't know how Valdez at 9,700 doesn't really flirt with 20 plus fantasy points, some longevity. And this matchup is incredible. I know it's hard to say that, only a couple of guys have over 200 ISO. No one in this projected lineup has over a 200 ISO against lefties, and over half the lineup bats under 200 since the beginning last year against lefties. So this is a really, really double A to triple A lineup of super plus park. So it's really hard to get away from Valdez here. So I can't chop it in that. I can't fade it, but I might undercut a little bit and just hope for more modest outcome at 9,700, 2025. But definitely profiles as a great play. Checks every box.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. He projects, like I said, like crazy for me. He's right there with Woodruff against the Pirates, which is kind of ridiculous. Woodruff is a little bit cheaper on FanDuel. I just ran my sort, and without changing anything, I would basically have half and half with these two and no one else. So I'm going to have to do a little bit of wrenching on that while we talk. But I agree. I'm going to have a lot of Framber. I'm probably going to try and pull some shares to spread out to some of the other guys. Like Kyle Wright, whoever else it was that we talked about that was an interesting positive leverage play, Martin Perez. So I'll probably be doing that a little bit, but I'm going to have a lot of Framber here. I just love the matchup too much. Ramon Laureano, the only player on the A's right now with a WRC plus above average, 120 somehow in this terrible lineup. So good for him. Is there any reason to draw stacks of A's, or are they just so bad and Framber's so good at suppressing any offense that even if they scratch out a few runs, it's not going to be worth it as a stack? Is that kind of your read here?
I have the Athletics actually hit like 4 home runs in a game as a team this year. I don't know. Yeah,
I don't remember specifically it happening. I can't.
It probably definitely didn't happen in Oakland. So no, and it's probably not going to happen against a 65% ground ball pitcher. So no Athletics. If Laureano fell in the pool or whatever in a one-off, sure, but no stacks.
Yep, same. Any reason to go to Zach Logue here, right? 18.6% strikeout rate in 5 starts, 24 2/3, 7,800 on DK. I'm not getting it for him at all at 75 on FanDuel, right? Any reason on DK?
No.
So then let's talk Astros bats because they look interesting. The top end projects out well for me, but that's nothing new. It happens every day, basically. Back ends, I think there's very interesting hitters who we've talked about a number of times through the season, but take me through this lineup specifically. Who are you looking at? Are you getting to Astros as a priority stacker?
Yeah, maybe it's just a daily occurrence, man. But every day I open up the top stack tool, and Houston never gets owned. And it feels like even today at 6.7% ownership on the DK early, that's too low. We have them a 10% chance of being a top stack. So we're already getting positive leverage on that number. And then, yeah, these names are just way too good. And there's some decent value spots. I know Altuve and Yordan Alvarez. By the way, Yordan and Ohtani, both over 6K, almost 6.5K. But Mauricio Dubon right off the rip gives you some value to kind of reprieve from those high prices. And then you get down to Yuli Gurriel, it's cheap as well. So yeah, it's going to be a 5K, aggregate stack, but I don't think it's too hard to get to be 6% owned against the Athletics. So absolutely, I'll get to the Astros today. And 12% was my number, but even 10% is, our number versus the ownership giving you plenty of positive leverage.
Yeah, definitely a spot I want to prioritize. All those bats that you named there, it's just hitters that I really like getting to. And if they're all going to be owned in the single digits against this pitcher, I'm happy to go to it. Chas McCormick, one of my guys down toward the bottom of the lineup that I'm getting to all the time. You mentioned Dubon. I've been getting a lot of him on FanDuel. Shortstop and outfield eligibility for 2,100. That's a nice priority value bat to put with the rest of this stack and just help you figure out the rest of it. Aledmys Diaz, triple position eligibility for 2,100 on FanDuel, also creates a lot of flexibility at way less ownership in that lineup. So there's just some interesting bats to shift around there for Houston. So priority stack for me. Let me knock out a piece of business and we will move on to the next few games. MLB with promo code MLB Live. What does that mean? Well, that was the headline in my sheet here, but I needed to stall for a second. Get all the access to the great Stokastic Plus tools and content for nearly every DFS sport out there with the Stokastic Plus Platinum Pass. You guys have heard us talk about this before. You guys know what Platinum is, hopefully by now. But Platinum is when you get access to everything at Stokastic, be it MLB, be it PGA, MMA. Is NASCAR going on right now? I don't know. NASCAR, whatever's going on during the summer, whatever's going on at any time of the year, if we're covering it, you get it with the Platinum plan. So jump in there, check that out. If you use promo code MLB Live, you get 50% off your first week of any weekly package. That's with this. If you're a new user, you can save 50% off your first week of Stokastic Plus Pass. All you have to do is click the link in the video description below to activate this offer. You can use promo code MLB Live, all caps, one word, for 50% off your first week. I guess it's a week now. 50% off your first week. If you want to only play MLB DFS, that's perfectly fine. Head over to MLB Weekly checkout page instead and use the code to get 50% off your first week of our MLB package. Again, this is for new users only. Please note Fantasy Cruncher is an add-on and is not included in our base packages, but can easily be added at checkout. Join Stokastic Plus today. That promo code one more time, MLB Live, for 50% off your first week of any weekly package, either MLB or Platinum. All right, we'll talk about Odd Shopper in a couple minutes, but let's jump into the next game here, Gun. Tampa Bay Rays with Drew Rasmussen on the hill. Not drawing very much ownership at all in Cincinnati, taking on the Reds. Hunter Green on the mound for the Reds, also not really drawing a ton of ownership for an interesting strikeout pitcher, taking on a tough lineup, but there's some strikeouts to be had here. Do you like either one of these pitchers at low ownership?
Yeah, I think Green is the guy we got to keep an eye on, especially if you're using our top stacks tool. Hunter Green is projecting as, let's see, we give him a 12% chance to be in the top two pitcher on the slate. He's coming in at just 3.8% owned, and that's insane. You hardly ever see, an 8%, 10%. I don't say hardly ever, but when you ever see the 8 and 10% positive leverage guys, that's when you should start paying attention, because basically what it means is they're under-owned based on their opportunity to win you this slate. So he has not been a fun ride slate to slate. Obviously, he has a little bit of a home run problem, and this park is a little bit of a home run park, but the strikeouts haven't really, or at least the swinging strike rate stuff has always been there. Almost a 13% swinging strike rate on the season with a 28% K rate. So it will be a scumdacker spot because of the ballpark. But I think the ownership right now is a little too low for Hunter Green and his odds of being a slate breaker.
Yeah, the 6.34% home run rate on 37% hard hit, 10.9% barrel. There's probably a little bit of happenstance in there. Like, the hard hit isn't egregiously bad. It's 37%. That's fine. 10.9% barrel is a little higher than you'd want, but it's not one of these guys who's yielding like a 17% barrel rate and he's giving up a ton of home runs. There's probably just some noise in that right now. What I'm focused on is that 28% strikeout rate that you mentioned. I definitely would scumdacker this one, but there's a lot of people taking the Tampa Bay side. Are you concerned about that Tampa ownership? Like, how much comparative to the field are you getting the Tampa Bay in that scumdacker equation?
So we have the field at
like
a lot.
Yeah, we're pulling like 20s.
Yeah,
15s.
That's a little aggressive for this particular lineup. There's really only a couple of guys I would target for power anyway. I know this ballpark kind of creates power, Isak Paredes, maybe some G-Man Choi, guys like that. But generally, this isn't like a super powerful team. Only 3 guys with a 750 OPS against righties since the beginning of last year: Choi, Arozarena, and Paredes. So I could justify undercut. And I think 20% on the Tampa Bay Rays is probably a little too much for me. So I think I might sit around the 10% and just focus on a couple of the guys that make the most sense. Because when you get to 20%, you're just trying to create several different variations of this stack, and I don't think I need to get too creative. I think it's the main guys is the main guys. So if the main stack gets there in 10%, I'll focus on those guys, and I can like trim the fat on the Kiermaiers, the Walls, maybe the Lows, guys like that. But Franco, Ramirez, G-Man, Choi, Rosarena, and Paredes, spin the wheel on 10% of that, and I'll take my chances on not having 22%.
Yeah, I think I'm going to be kind of similar to that. Probably fairly well below the field on most of those hitters. Interestingly, Isaac Paredes, 3,700 on FanDuel. He's the highest ranked home run option in my home run model. He's the only hitter in this lineup with more than 10 home runs this season. 13 home runs for him on the season, a solid 328 ISO. He's been ridiculous. Everybody else below a 180 ISO right now. There's not a lot of power in this lineup, like you said. So if we're thinking happenstance in that home run percentage for Green, if we're thinking this isn't a home run hitting lineup, yeah, it's a homer happy park. But I do think the public is maybe getting a little carried away with Tampa there. So I'm with you on that call. What about the other side of this one? Are you getting to any Drew Rasmussen? And then are you getting to any Cincinnati Reds coming back the other way?
Yeah, a little bit of both. I'm probably we did this last week with the Scumdacker game of the day, where I have 4 aspects of the game. I think because with ownership in mind, I think it's Green, then Reds, then Rays, and then Rasmussen for me, meaning I'll still get this from Rasmussen, but he still does have a sub 20% K rate, and his expected ERA is well above his actual ERA at 4.46. So looking for some regression there. But versus what our ownership is saying on Rasmussen, we have him at 1% owned versus a 7% chance to be in the top 2 pitcher. Again, much like Hunter Green, positive leverage plays. And if you're going to trim the fat like we are on, maybe Valdez is 42% or even Woodruff's is 57%, you get to a couple of shares of those guys, and it's, process-wise, not a bad decision. So I will get to a little bit Rasmussen, but he's 4th on the totem pole.
Yeah, I think that's probably the right priority. I might actually bump the Rays down a little bit just because of all that ownership. So I might shift him above the Rays in my priority order if I'm all 4 sides in this one. But I'm with you. I think it warrants taking all 4 sides, and that's quibbling over details. Who do you like specifically from the Reds lineup when we're talking about rostering some of these Reds?
Pham, Naquin stand out. There's no Votto in this version of the lineup, so maybe you get a little bit of that a pitch count terrorizing home run upside. But 1 through 4 probably is going to be the focus for me. I see Donnie Barrels, Donovan Solano's in the lineup at the bottom. He's pretty cheap on FanDuel if you want to take a shot of him. But it's really 1 through 4 for me as the priorities.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that. There's always the temptation of Mike Moustakas just remembering who he used to be. 2,300. He's 2,300 right now for a reason. I mean, dude's under a 5 in my homer model. Everybody knows that 10 is the magic number in my homer model. He's got 3 on the season. It's just not there anymore for the Moose. So yeah, I'm with you. It's mostly about the top end here. Those guys are all under 10% or 10% or under, I should say, noticing that Jonathan India is exactly 10% on DK. But yeah, it's mostly about the top 4 there. Let's move on from this one. We'll go to the Guardians against the Royals. Guardians with an interesting pitcher in Tristan McKenzie on the mound. Only 8,000 on DK, only pulling 10.4% ownership, 9,200 on FanDuel, similarly owned. On the other side, John Heasley, 5,800 on DK. His price isn't popping up because I changed his name on FanDuel because as I told you, updated my model and I forgot to fix that. But yeah, let's not care about his price on FanDuel. Talk to me about Tristan McKenzie. I assume you're not interested in Heasley because I'm not.
Yeah, he's cheap, but not really. Not really. Tristan McKenzie, 8K, it's pretty intriguing. I'm not surprised, but usually his ownership and top stack percentage isn't this linear. It's pretty even with the field, 12% versus 10%. Kansas City's been kind of scrappy. They've played spoiler. The Christian Javier game a couple games back. So this lineup's starting to put it together. 1 through 4 starting to create some chemistry. Pascantino's got some pop. So there is some danger here. It's not an easy matchup, but we do get a plus park, and we do get a pitcher in himself who has a 23% K rate with almost a 12% swing and strike rate. But his barrel rate and his expected ERA, both alarmingly high, so it doesn't come without danger. So maybe a little bit of both sides here. I would probably be closer to the 10% number if he wasn't at 8K. So with AK in mind, I can get up a little bit, take a couple of those shares from the top dogs, and understand 16 to 20 at AK from the SP2 spot is something that I can live with. And he does give us a little bit more upside just based on the strikeout acumen that he's shown in the past. His strikeout rate to righties this year is a lot lower than it was last year. So maybe there is some room for positive regression. So I probably 14 to 15% him. But it's mainly because he's too cheap.
Yeah, on DK, I think that discount more than pays for any risk that you're taking on with the hard hit, with the home run rate, anything like that. It's not the greatest matchup in the world for strikeouts, but there's some strikeouts in this Royals lineup. So I like that spot for McKenzie on DK, and I'm taking shares of it on FanDuel as well at 92, 11% owned. I wish he was a little bit lower owned. Like I wish that I don't know why at 92 on FanDuel he's drawing 11% where people don't want to pay 8,000 for him on DK. Like that doesn't really make sense in my brain, but maybe I'm just a little slow from being ill all week or whatever it was. But I'm going to get to him there anyway. Are you getting any Royals bats on the other side? They're all owned in the single digits. There is a little bit of pop in that lineup, and it is a pitcher, like you just said, who gives up a little bit of power.
Yeah, I don't think we've seen McKenzie not sustain a less than 1.5 home run per nine. So you usually expect one or two, if nothing else. So if you're not into, the onslaught 5-mans, maybe definitely cherry pick some of the power guys. For me, Pasquantino profiles pretty well. And then Melendez, Bobby Witt, and Benintendi are all guys I can get to. But don't sleep on Merrifield with a couple trips around the bases, maybe a stolen bag or something like that. But for power, definitely Pasquantino and maybe Melendez and Witt.
Joey Gallo and 2 non-Volpe Dominguez prospects for Andrew Benintendi, yes or no?
I mean, yes, but I'd rather get Ian Happ, but I'm sure that'll cost more.
Oh, I would much rather get Ian Happ. I love Ian Happ. That's a good call. But yeah, I everybody knows I love Joey Gallo, but I think that's a little bit too tempting. Benintendi fits nicely for what they need right now. So not that they need very much, but that would be a nice piece to put in left field there. Anyway, moving on. I think that covers that. What about the Guardian side of this? Are we taking a look at Ahmed Rosario, Jose Ramirez, Josh Naylor, Franmil, any of these guys going up against kind of a targetable pitcher here in my mind? 17% strikeout rate, 11.6% walk rate for Heasley. That seems targetable.
Yeah, 1.43 on that whip, 5.39 expected ERA. And when you really, he's allowed way more homers to lefties, but his batted ball data to righties doesn't say that he should be not giving up homers to righties. So, yeah, sign me up. I don't want any Heasley. I do want the Guardians, and Jose Ramirez at the top of my bomb detector for this particular matchup. Shocker. Naylor was scratched yesterday, so I guess make sure that he doesn't get scratched today. He is in the confirmed lineup, but just something to watch. He would be there with me as well. And then Franmil Reyes, again, I just don't see how he's sustaining a 0.3 home run per nine with a 43% fly ball rate, 37% hard contact. Like, he's not like a big ground ball guy for that home run per nine to be what it is. So yeah, a Guardian stack, sign me up. Yeah,
I'm with you on Franmil. He's actually right there. Jose Ramirez is slightly above him in my home run model, but it's negligible, the difference. 55.8% hard hit at 16.8% barrel for Franmil this year. Those home runs are there. They're coming. Only 8 on the season, but we've seen this guy mash. So I'm happy to keep going there until it starts to come through a little bit more regularly. And I think we can hit a nice little spot. Only 10.5% owned on DK, 10.1% on FanDuel for 2,500. That works for me. Let's move on to the desert. We've got the Colorado Rockies with Kyle Freeland on the hill taking on the Arizona Diamondbacks with Madison Bumgarner. Another southpaw against southpaw game. Bumgarner, very cheap on both sites. Freeland, very cheap on DK. For some reason, 8,200 on the FanDuel slate. Are you getting to either one of these pitchers?
Definitely no Mad Bum. He's my mortal enemy. And yeah, no Freeland either. I think it's bats only for me.
Yeah, I agree with that. I dabble in the Mad Bum world from time to time. I'm not really so much in the Freeland world, but this doesn't feel like the right spot to me. Just kind of a positive hitting environment out there in the desert, decent totals on this game. So I'm not really going there. So talk to me about the bats, because there's not a ton of attention on the Rockies side going up against Mad Bum, but the Diamondbacks are drawing a lot of ownership going up against Kyle Freeland here. So what do you think of each side of this in terms of the bats?
Cam Newton clip, he's back. Chris Bryant, 2 homers last night. You know, he hit that IL, and everyone made a big deal about him not having a homer. Well, couple games back, I think 4 or 5 games back, he finally got that first homer against the Dodgers. Got 2 last night. We know historically I love some Chris Bryant against the lefty, and I love Madison Bumgarner to give up some bombs here. So I think Chris Bryant's not going to be 3,300 for long, and maybe not 4,400 for long on DK either. So if you believe in him being back, I'm going to sign up for that one. Connor Joe, I think, was out yesterday. He's in the top of the lineup. I can get behind that. Those are my 2 favorites, but I don't really see really a day off in this lineup. This is a really Montero's the only guy that I don't have enough sample to say that he can hit lefties for a high average. And then most of these guys hit lefties for some decent power. Yeah, maybe influenced by their ballpark, but Madison Bumgarner's hard contact to righties is just through the roof. And it's what gets me in trouble every 5 days, because it almost never works. But I like this Rocky stack a lot.
Yeah, I think that's a good call. I like going to that spot. A lot of the hitters that you mentioned in there, definitely are going to be in some of my lineups. Randall Grichuk, very interesting to me, 2,600 on FanDuel, hitting 5th, 3% owned. I like that spot. He's only got 8 home runs on the year, but this is a guy that we've seen mash in the past. Chris Bryant, I believe I'm right back there again today. I need him to come through for the old dynasty team. He's a nice big piece that's coming back into my lineup. So we got to rocket up the standings, hopefully. So yeah, I'll be getting a lot of that. What about the Diamondbacks on the other side? A lot of guys over the 10-15% mark. Carson Kelly on the DK slate drawing nearly 25% ownership because he's a catcher hitting leadoff for only 2,600. Okay, that makes sense. But does all the ownership on the rest of this Diamondbacks lineup really make a lot of sense? Are you going there?
Man, last night's actual lineup was different than the projected lineup, and they still held on to some ownership, and I was perplexed. And they still kind of did all right in terms of not being the Braves or the Yankees. It's another spot where I think the ownership's a little too rich for my blood, but a lot of guys, they check all the boxes. Carson Kelly against the lefty, that's what you want. And now you lead him off as a cheap catcher on both sides. I mean, that's either click it or ticket, man. I might be all in or all out on that type of ownership, but the matchup just makes so much sense for that price point. I think Ketel Marte wasn't in the lineup yesterday. He's back. So I think this lineup is just too cheap. And I really kind of feel that way on both sides. So it's going to inflate the ownership. I think if we're fading it, it's a process move for big field tournaments. And I think that's the fine and the right approach. But man, is there a lot of guys with some high power marks for me in this lineup, with Kelly, Marte, Luplo even up there as well. So I think, man, I haven't really had a lot of catchers grab my eye tonight. So I don't know. I don't want to be overly basic, but how do you not get to Carson Kelly in abundance?
Yeah, I mean, look, on DK where you have to play a catcher, I think that's the obvious spot. If you're playing cash games of baseball, for some reason, everybody knows I don't really like cash for baseball, but Carson Kelly's your cash game catcher for sure over there. But yeah, it's a difficult spot to get away from with these Diamondbacks here. I feel like I want to undercut them though. Just based on some of the things that you were saying, I'd rather take some of those shares and just throw them at the other side of this game, maybe, and just pick up a little bit of leverage on the Rockies side of things. I'll have some Diamondbacks, but it's definitely not my favorite spot in the world here. So it'll be interesting to see how it comes out. Probably an inflection point of the night for me. If the Diamondbacks really go off here, it's probably not going to be my night, I think.
Yeah. And to Freeland's credit, it's not like he serves up a ton of power. He just doesn't strike you out, and he's going to let you put the ball in play. So if he can keep the ball in the park for the most part, it could definitely take the top off of that team. And I just straight up like the Rockies more no matter what. So I'm fine with diverting that ownership to the other side.
Yeah, I like you just said, I like that lineup a little bit more. There's also some good values in that lineup. There's plenty of good power in that lineup, and they're just way less owned. And just, hey, you could boil it down to something as simple as name recognition and star power, right? You've got Chris Bryant in that lineup. Make it stupid and simple. Let's move on from that on that awkward point. We've got, actually, let me take care of a little bit of Odd Shopper here. We've got running down the back end of the show. Odd Shopper, make your best bets in 30 seconds or less with Odd Shopper. With hundreds of bets featured every day, Odd Shopper gives you the edge you need in betting player props and game lines across all sports. Sign up for free now via the link in the video description below to gain access to our proprietary data, which will help you make your best bets. With expected win percentages and ROIs included, Odd Shopper uses the same DFS projections we use here at Stokastic to filter out the best bets available. Odd Shopper also features a parlay builder with optimized parlays and an arbitrage tool that identifies risk-free, guaranteed profit bets that you can make across sportsbook. Check it out, guys. It's pretty cool. It's linked in the description down there. It's also at the top of Stokastic. There's a little tab that says Odd Shopper. You can click it, or you can just go directly to oddsshopper.com. That's with 2 S's in the middle. Remember, we're running that promo too with the MGM promo. That's if you bet $10 on any MLB money line tonight, you win $200 free with BetMGM. So put those together, put Odd Shopper together, find a good money line to bet on, go over to BetMGM, put that $10 bet in and make yourself $200 and hopefully win the bet too. It's not too bad. Tyler, we're going to skip over the slideshow for the Stokastic Hall of Fame. I burnt a little bit too much time here, but guys, Stokastic Hall of Fame, you guys know the drill. If you finish top 3 in a contest with more than 5,000 people, you get a free month. At Stokastic HOF is the new Hall of Fame Twitter handle. So make sure you send the screenshot over there and the guys will take care of you on your free time there. Let's jump to the last 3 games on the slate here, Gun. We've got the Marlins against the Mets. Braxton Garrett going for the Marlins. Carlos Carrasco, who's come up a couple times during the show, the much more interesting pitcher on this game. 9,000 on the FanDuel slate, drawing 35% ownership over there. 7,500 on the DK slate. Unless, did I accidentally put, is he really drawing 35% ownership on FanDuel? I got to double check that. But talk to me about Carlos Carrasco. I assume neither of us is getting to Braxton Garrett.
Yeah, I don't really see myself getting to Garrett here. Carrasco is definitely a little bit more of a meditation point at 7,500, kind of like Tristan McKenzie. And we saw this yesterday where maybe not to the same extreme of talent-wise with like Snell and Giolito, but some of these pricing for pitchers on DraftKings just kind of put you in a corner. And Carrasco 75 against this version of the Marlins lineup definitely makes a lot of sense. A 24% K rate this year, 13% swing and strike rate. The expected ERA is under 4, right? It's not fantastic, but at 7,500, they really need ace-like numbers. And we know the Marlins have kind of backslid quite a bit, and they certainly haven't been as effective without Jazz Chisholm. So it makes sense, but does it make sense at a 36% clip? Well, I don't know if I want that much Carrasco, but I definitely understand it. We have him at a 3rd highest chance of being a top 2 pitcher on this slate, so that's a really good chance. But I do think he's coming in a little over-owned, a lot over-ownned.
Looks like the FanDuel, to clean that up, the FanDuel number was 13.7%. I had the wrong number. I had his DK number from earlier in the day there for him, but the DK number is still around 35%. So sorry to cut you off there.
You're fine. Yeah, on FanDuel at 9K, yeah, it's a little harder to get there, especially when you have one and Woodruff and Valdez are on the slate. But I get it. Carrasco and McKenzie, coin flip them. I think Carrasco, I think I might try and meet in the middle between the optimal and the projected. But even if I end up with just like 20-25%, I'm fine. But much like McKenzie, the price matchup, all the check boxes, Citi Field, it all makes enough sense that I can't just sit this one out and full fade it like I sometimes do when some of these guys come in egregiously owned. So yes, Carrasco, no Garrett.
Okay. I think that makes a ton of sense here. So let's talk about those Mets bats then going up against Braxton Garrett here. They're not really drawing as much ownership as I think maybe they should be. It's not like Garrett's given up a ton of home runs, a ton of hard hit or anything like that, but a 20% strikeout pitcher, 3.62 xFIP is good, 4.25 ERA, but he feels targetable to me here. And it's the Mets lineup, which is a pretty damn good lineup. Talk to me about the Mets. Are you getting the Mets stacks here? Are they under-owned? Am I crazy?
Yeah, I'll definitely get to some Mets stacks. That we got them at 3% owned versus a 5% chance to be the top stack. So technically under owned, yes, and even 5%. I'm willing to get to like 8%, just because I think they're a talented team against lefties. And if Bryson Garrett's 1.45 whip makes him short for this game. I'm fine with spinning the wheel on some of these bullpen arms, and then Garrett's whip being that high creates that big inning potential. A couple runners on, and then all of a sudden Pete Alonso has a chance to 3-run shots. Lindor's shown a swing lately, so yeah, I'm getting some Mets stacks, and I do like that. I don't have to get too aggressive with it because historically the Mets never come through for me. So being able to be over the field at like 6% is a great spot for me.
Yeah, the Mets never come through for you, me, the entire city of New York for the last 30 years or so. Yeah,
you said it, not me.
We love the Mets. We love the Mets. I'm not one of those Met hating Yankee fans. I've never really gotten that. We might have talked about this in the past, but like to me, it's a big brother, little brother thing where like they can hate us, and I'm just like I support the Mets as long as they're not playing the Yanks. It's the New York team. I could support the Mets, so no issues with them. I don't know how you a Met hating Yankee fan.
No, the only thing I hate is the Red Sox and the Astros, bro. Everybody else is cool.
There we go. I like it. Let's move on from this one. Actually, no, we didn't talk about the Marlins bats here. Any love for Marlins bats at basically low single-digit ownership, sub 1% against Carlos Carrasco here?
Yeah, actually a little bit. So usually if a pitcher's 30, 40, 50% owned, I'll stack the other side just because there's built-in leverage. I refuse to do that with Oakland ever, so I'm not doing that in the Valdez spot. And maybe I'll do it with a little bit of Pittsburgh, but I will do it with this Marlins team because Bertie leading off, he's shown he's got a lot of speed. He'll still at will. And then guys like Garrett Cooper, Jesus Aguilar, Jesus Sanchez, not the strongest, but not the weakest either. A little bit of pop in those bats, and Avi Garcia, Brian Anderson being in the mix as well. So I will stack them, but it's more of a just to go opposite of a lot of lineups out there. And I believe in this team having one day or a couple days a week of high offense other than like the athletic or instead of the athletics in their high leverage spot. So yes, and we don't have to do much to be there. We have them at 1% owned, so 4% running back.
Yeah, and they're super cheap. FanDuel, everybody in the 2000s except for Birdie up at the top, who's 3,700, kind of ridiculously. But yeah, Jesus Aguilar, Jesus Sanchez, Avi Garcia. There's a lot of guys to like in that lineup. So about 8 minutes left in the show, 2 games to go. Kind of can stretch our legs a little bit on these last 2. We made up our time. We've got the Pirates with Zach Thompson on the hill going up against the Brewers with the man of the hour, Brandon Woodruff. 10K on both sites. 56% owned on DK, 35% owned on FanDuel. Might even be low on the FanDuel slate, 31.4% strikeout rate, taking on these Pirates. Talk to me about Woodruff here.
Yeah, Woody gets a lineup of just 3 righties, all lefties. The Pirates are fun, but they're still not like an elite team. They're not consistent yet. And Brandon Woodruff is Brandon Woodruff. And this is, the ace we've been waiting for the last 3 days. You mentioned that 30+% K rate. That's just really, really good. And if you're worried about more lefties and righties, I don't know that this is going to sustain long-term, but Woodruff actually only has a 21% K rate to righties this season, but a 44% K rate to lefties. So it kind of helps if you believe in the single season splits. So give me all of the Woodruff. I know it's negatively leveraged, but this is one of those I'll just eat, and I'll give back some of the Valdez ownership, some of the Carrasco ownership. But I've waited too long for an ace to hang my hat on, and he's too cheap. Like he's just too cheap at 10K even. Yeah. To get away from his more than likely 25+ fantasy points. And one thing you gotta like now is he's fully stretched out again, and he did the most with 70 pitches. Now he could have 100+ back in his chamber. So it's not uncommon to expect 30+ fantasy points in this matchup. So all of the Woodruff here, no Zach Thompson.
Yep, I think it makes total sense. My highest projected pitcher right there. Like I said, it's him, then it's Framber, and if I had just gone with what the model wanted me to do, it would have been basically a 50-50 split between the two of them. And that might not be the wrong way to approach this one. I just fire away with the 2 obvious names, but I don't like doing things like that. I like to make life difficult. So talk to me about, let's talk about Brewers bats going up against Zach Thompson here, because we agree wholeheartedly on Woodruff. I don't see any need to roster any Zach Thompson and his sub 20% strikeout rates, 6,700 on DK. I guess we haven't really put our finger on like a supreme value pitcher du jour on DK, but it's not going to be Zach Thompson against this Brewers lineup for me. So talk to me about Thompson if you want to, or talk about the Brewers hitters.
Yeah, Thompson has a power problem on the season. Over 2 homer per 9 to righties, 1.5 to lefties. On the road, over 2.3. Get him out of PNC Park. American Family Field definitely can play home run friendly for these Brewers, especially the lefty pull hitters. Yelich, Rowdy Tellez, 2 guys that'll profile well. Rowdy's a guy I like a lot for power. Brewers definitely going to be one of my more sought after stacks. I'm actually kind of surprised at their ownership being just 2% as a team stack. I think that's ridiculously low, and that's an easy spot to grab 8% from the Rays ownership for me, and just throw it on the Brewers, because I do think the matchup is that good. And we've seen it more than once in the last 2 weeks now, Terry. We saw it 3 days ago when the Pirates put out Manny Benuelos, and then Josh Van Meter. This Pirates bullpen is out here winning tournaments. So I don't think any team should be 2% against them going forward.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. If anybody saw that, that was just a joke. That was when the Yankees just lit up the scoreboard the other night. That was hilarious. Did you see JBJ pitching last night, by the way?
Yeah, he had some heat
in the 90s throwing. Yeah, he was surprisingly good. I mean, he's got a great arm, so it wasn't like totally shocking, but he looked legit up there. Like, you could turn him into a pitcher if you needed to. That was interesting. But yeah, the Pirates don't have Jackie Bradley Jr. or anybody nearly as good as him as a pitcher in their bullpen right now. So definitely something to target there. I like Brewers bats here as well. I'm with you on everything you said. Any reason to grab Pirates against the ownership of Brandon Woodruff, or is it just a write-off?
I'm more inclined to I don't think the Pirates are there yet, but I think this team isn't bad for fantasy, sure. Right? It's like the Sacramento Kings, right? They could serve a purpose in DFS with guys like Vogelbach, Sawinski, O'Neal Cruz. Like, there's enough speed and mix in there that if they surprise Woodruff, it wouldn't stun me. Again, they're the anti-athletics. The athletics are just bad, but I think this lineup has enough reason to get there, especially at no ownership. We have them at 1%. So, 1%. So if you threw 2, 3, 4% just to hedge, if you're like me, you might end up with 50, 60%. Woodruff, why not have an insurance policy in there just in case? But behind Woodruff is probably Devin Williams, Josh Hader, just a really tough bullpen unless the Brewers go all the way off. So it's not a high confidence play, but it is an insurance policy.
Yeah, there's enough interesting bats in that lineup that I guess you can do it. But for me, I like to draw those insurance stacks, but some usually against a lower end pitcher than this and a lower end bullpen, so I'm kind of with you. It's there. It might be a luxury to do that. Last game on deck, Nationals against the Braves. An under-discussed spot maybe so far during the show, but the Braves are going up against Patrick Corbin here, who is he's had a couple flashes at times, but overall, he's a targetable pitcher the last couple of years, and there's so much power in this Braves lineup. They're drawing a lot of ownership attention. Is there any reason to roster any Patrick Corbin shares? Still a good strikeout matchup here for him. And then Kyle Wright on the other side, I do think is interesting. We mentioned him at the top of the show, $9,000 on DK, 99 on FanDuel, not drawing double-digit ownership on either site. So he's kind of interesting to me. So talk to me about the matchup here in terms of the pitchers.
Man, that last Corbin game wasn't unexpected, but I don't think I'm gonna tempt fate here. Just a 9.7% swing and strike rate on the season. He's gonna let you put the ball in play more than he's not, especially against good teams. And if the Braves team is pretty doggone good, 1 through 5 is death row here. So I'm probably gonna see this one on Corbin. If he goes off again, he goes off again. But Kyle Wright, it could be the most interesting play on the slate. We got him at a 18% chance or 17.5% chance to be the top 2 pitcher on DraftKings, and almost half the ownership. And I know, we've talked about McKenzie and Martin Perez, Hunter Green even. And Green maybe the closest in strikeout potential, but Kyle Wright's metrics are really good for him to be super positively leveraged. So this is a guy I think I'm going to have to get to pretty heavily. His 25% K rate, 3.49 expected ERA. Those dogs will hunt. I know the Nationals don't necessarily strike out a ton. This version of their lineup has a little bit more strikeout propensity in it, but it still has, Soto, Bell, Garcia, and Ruiz who strike out under 17% aggregate. But Kyle Wright's too good for this ownership, especially with our odds of him being a top 2 pitcher. So this might be the tournament play of the day, getting to some Kyle Wright 9K on DK.
Yeah, totally with you. And I tell you what, I like it even better at 9,900. You're paying a little bit more for it, but 3.2% ownership. That's super low on FanDuel. In the weird event that Framber and Woodruff both completely falter in their amazing matchups, he's got such a great shot at being your top pitcher of the night at essentially no ownership that I think he's worth getting overloaded to. So I've got a decent amount more than the field on Kyle right here. Really like the position. And you don't even need Valdez and Woodruff to completely stumble. Like if they just have okay games for them at their ownership, you can sneak through with some Kyle right here in a nice position. So I really like that spot. Talk to me about the Braves bats. They're drawing a ton of ownership. We've got 5 minutes before the slate actually locks. So let's talk Braves bats here. The top end, ridiculously popular, but it trails off toward the bottom pretty quickly. A hitter that's been interesting to me since he's returned to the lineup, and he's been very cheap, is Eddie Rosario. Hitting 7th tonight, lefty on lefty against Pat Corbin. I don't really care about the lefty. He's only 2,600 on FanDuel, drawing 3% ownership, 3,400 on DK, drawing 4% ownership on a team where Ronald Acuna, for example, 25% on DK, 33% on FanDuel. Austin Riley, 21-17. To get Eddie Rosario's bat at low single-digit ownership for those prices in this lineup, that's kind of interesting. You've got Michael Harris at the bottom of the lineup. That's kind of interesting. So just take me through the lineup from top to bottom, because I'm playing the hell out of this lineup.
Yeah, everyone is in play for me. I'm in agreement on Rosario. He fixed his eyesight. So now he can hit dingers again. Stolen base yesterday, so we know that's back in his repertoire. And Patrick Corbin doesn't suck much less versus lefties. He's really equally he's an equal opportunity bomb giver. 1.42 home run per 9, just about even to both sides of the plate there, and over at 300 average to both sides of the plate. So you're not losing anything if you do get to these lefties, especially at the top of Olsen. But Rosario, yes, and Michael Harris, if he can get on base, we know he's got a little bit of speed here, and getting on base in front of Ronnie and Swanson this season gives you a great chance to touch home plate. So 1 through 9, I literally will not have one guy out of this lineup not in my stack. I would imagine Orlando RC is the guy I get to the least, but even he's gonna be in my player pool.
Yeah, I agree that probably Arcia will be the least owned guy in my lineups as well. But 1 through 9, this team definitely. Do we care at all? Somebody in the chat mentioned that Eddie Rosario is hitting his batting average is 100. Do we care about batting average? Do we care about it over a 65 plate appearance sample?
No, I don't care about batting average, period.
Nope, but me neither. Same. All right, moving on. Any reason roster Nationals bats against Kyle right here?
The usual suspects, yes. But past the Soto, Bell, Cruz, it's hard to get to anybody with a lot of zest. So probably no onslaughts, but the Substack's always going to be there.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's the Soto, Bell, Cruz part of it. If you add in maybe a Keibert Ruiz, if you need a catcher. Cesar Hernandez is he scores runs. I'll give him that. It's about all he does. But not my favorite stack to get to, and it's a pitcher that I'm going to have a lot of. So I don't suspect there's a lot of Nationals in my lineup. But if I have 1 or 2 hedge spots with some Bell and some Cruz and some Soto, I wouldn't be too disappointed in it. Who's your value pitcher? Somebody out there has let's say under 7,000 on the DK slate. Let's say under 7,000 on the DK slate. Who's your pitcher if they've got to make a click in these last 2 minutes?
Man,
that's a tough one.
I think it would be either Freeland or Heasley.
I think it's Freeland.
Yeah.
I don't love it, but I think it's Freeland for me. What if we said under 70? Carrasco's there at 75. What if we said 74 or below?
I might take a shot on Sandoval's 1 and 4K rate.
Yeah, I think that's the spot. Although I do like, we've talked about the Orioles stack on the other side of that. So I'd probably grab both sides of that. But I think that's probably my guy. He'd be the highest projected guy under that price for me on the DK slate. So I think I like that spot. Let's grab a couple minutes, Gun. We've got this one covered. Lock is in about a minute. So good luck to everybody out there. But let's grab a minute or two. We'll talk about the 4 games that are on this nightcap before we shut down for the day here. Give the people a little bonus content from Stokastic. We've got our Yanks going against the Red Sox once again. We've got the Giants and the Padres, the Cubbies and the Dodgers, the Blue Jays and the Mariners. So it's an interesting set of games. A lot of good teams in here. Jordan Montgomery against Cutter Crawford to start us off here. I assume we'll have some Monty. Actually, let me name all the pitchers so we can kind of give some perspective on the slate, because there's some interesting pitchers as well, some ace caliber guys. So we've got Jordan Montgomery against Cutter Crawford in the Yankees Red Sox game. We've got Carlos Rodon against Yu Darvish, very interesting pitching matchup in the San Francisco San Diego game. Drew Smyly against Clayton Kershaw in the Cubbies against Dodgers game, so one good pitcher there. And then Alek Manoah against Robbie Ray in the nightcap in Seattle. I almost called it St. Louis. Ooh, Seattle, the one out in the Pacific Northwest. So Jordan Montgomery, kind of interesting for 6.5K on the DK slate to me in that mix of pitchers. Like, he's clearly the value guy there. Am I mistaken in thinking that?
I mean, yes, but if you're wondering where all the good pitchers went, they went to the night slate. So we don't like, we could use Jordan Montgomery on a different slate, but there sure is a lot of aces on this main slate or in this night. I don't know what the heck they're calling it, but yeah, for him to be the second cheapest guy on the entire slate definitely has the ability to be a strong value. But man, is there some upsides through and through this slate.
Yeah, and look, it's not the greatest matchup in the world, but I just think on talent and at that price, he's also positively leveraged on this DK main thing. So yeah, I think I would be definitely grabbing some additional shares of him and just pairing them off in different combinations with all these ace caliber pitchers that we've got available. And it's not like they price these guys at exorbitant prices either, based on what I'm seeing. So yeah, it looks like you can put together basically any combination of pitchers that you want to here. So as far as the aces go, who would be your top ranked? Who would be your top target as far as the aces go? Let's start there.
Oh man, probably Kershaw. Maybe Kershaw, Manoah,
based on matchup.
Yeah, definitely matchup. Kershaw, Manoah, Rodon, and those three, maybe not in that order, but those three at the top somewhere. Obviously, I'm not that enthralled with Robbie Ray against the Blue Jays. Kind of surprised he's a top price pitcher there. But yeah, those the trio of Kershaw, Rodon, and Manoah would probably be my three highest owned, one way or the other.
Yeah, I think that makes a ton of sense. You're getting nice positive leverage on Manoah, which is an interesting spot, 9,100. He's more expensive than Rodon and Kershaw going up against Seattle. So it's an interesting spot, but that's what's giving him that leverage position. So you can definitely get away with something there. What I do like about Robbie Ray, I hate the matchup against the Blue Jays, but a 15.3 leverage score, 33.2% probability of being a top two on DK and only a 17.9% ownership. So he's getting owned about half of his probability of being a top two, according to the top pitchers tool here. That's got to be at least a little bit interesting, right?
Yeah, it is. Just based on what
hard
we know
to trust, but interesting.
I think he has had like an incredible strength of schedule in the last month, and that might have like raised expectations here. But yeah, the metrically, we know he's a Cy Young caliber guy, but we also know that the Blue Jays will probably throw out all power righties, and they probably have some film on Mr. Ray.
Yeah, I would think so. And that could get problematic in a hurry. So I think those are the interesting spots to talk about in terms of the pitching. Is there anything to call out about any of the guys that we didn't touch on? Like, do you like any shares of Yu Darvish here? He's the other talented guy we didn't really talk about. And then what about the scrubs, the Cutter Crawford, Marcus Stroman part of this?
Yeah, Darvish is definitely the next man up for me.
Sorry, keep going.
No, Darvish is next man up for me. 6 to 8 innings is probably the expectation. 100 plus pitches, a lot of strikeout potential. And if Darvish cracked that top three for me over Manoah, I don't think I would lose sleep as well. I was expecting a depreciated lineup, but 7,900 for Darvish. I think if that's on the main slate, he might be the highest owned pitcher. That's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, that's low. Yeah. For the Cubbies, do you know, is it Stroman or is it Smyly? Because if it's Stroman, that's a little bit more interesting. I said scrub because I was thinking it was Smyly, and then I read the name Stroman because that's what's in the tool. Do you know which one of these pitchers is actually going? Because I've got different information in two different spots.
So I had heard that Stroman was supposed to start today.
Okay.
But I don't know for sure.
I trust the Stokastic tool a lot more than the other one that I was looking at where the lineups are. So we'll go with Stokastic and talk about Stroman. Any love for him?
No, he actually just got shelled in his rehab start, and
okay,
I guess they're that in need of a pitcher that they come up, and me and Stroman got beef, so I never play him, but not against the Dodgers even more.
So does that lead you to Dodgers bats then?
Yes, absolutely. 5.1 run total for them. That's tied with the Yankees for the most on the slate, so it's hard to not land there.
Absolutely. Couple favorite bats from the Dodgers.
Mookie, Trey, Freeman, Will Smith. I mean,
that was a gimme.
You want to ask me the Yankees? I got you there too, buddy.
Hey, how about that Matt Carpenter, huh?
Oh man, he's not. He's in a lineup with Rizzo today. Wow,
gotta love it. They're working him in all over the place. He's probably playing in the outfield again. Yeah. Hitting sixth today, Carp. Pretty solid version of the Yankees lineup here going up against Cutter Crawford. I think that's got to be an obvious target here. So outside of the obvious names, starting with Aaron Judge in the leadoff spot down through Matt Carpenter in the sixth spot, I don't mind getting to any of a semi-hot Aaron Hicks in the 7 spot. Are you getting to any? Would you get to any Hicks? Would you get to any of the 8 and 9 hitters?
Yeah, Hicks is definitely Stella's founder groove. IKF and Higgy, sure, I'm much less enthralled. I think they're also pinch hit risk if this game got a little wonky later. But yeah, I'm fine with 1 through 9. But Hicks is definitely he's playing better than 2.6K lately. And he has power from the right side of the plate, too, against righties named Josh Van Meter.
There we go. What about on the other side of this one? The Red Sox got some killer righties going up against Jordan Montgomery here with JD Martinez and their Bogarts in the middle of that lineup. No Devers in the lineup, though. He's got a back issue. He was wincing as he was ripping through swings last night. You could see it on his face, and then he came out of the game. But you still got like Bobby Dahlbeck, Trevor Story in this lineup. So would you be getting to any Red Sox here?
Yeah, I know it's, the Yankees have been pummeling the Red Sox, but the Red Sox have been hitting the baseball. Rob Refsnyder had 4 hits in the leadoff spot yesterday against Cortez and the crew. And I think this is still a pretty decent lineup. Vasquez in the 2 spot is a little weird. But I think if we, historically look at him, he takes this, I like the split. JD Martinez is still looking for some power, hitting some loud singles yesterday. Xander's in play, and Story and Dahlbeck, they have a ton of power in the bottom of the lineup too. I see Plawecki's in the lineup too. Is Vasquez DHing? That's wild if that is the case, or one or the other. I would think one of them's got to be, right. Yeah, but no, Refsnyder, JD, Xander, Story would be the priority clicks for me. But I would say that the Red Sox have been hitting better than maybe people think they have been. Yeah. It's just the Yankees have been hitting much more in scoring crazy, more.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So that covers that one. Let's put it this way. Any like key offensive stacked spot that you want to call out before we end the show? Because I don't want to keep Tyler here all night. He's frantic. His poor dog's going nuts in the back there, probably has to go out. But any other spots to really call out here for people for this weird 4-game main night thing?
I think Darvish either breaks the slate or gets broken. So maybe the Giants offense is worth getting to some shares, but these smaller slates kind of build themselves. And once you get past the Yankees, I guess the Blue Jays at 12%, fourth on the totem pole here. And we know that they have a lot of power. I don't see a confirmed lineup yet, but Robbie Ray does have a power problem, and so do the Blue Jays. So I think that could be a perfect storm.
Yep. Yeah, that was the one I was going to throw into the mix there. And definitely a lineup where I like to grab some of the hitters like a Matt Chapman. If he's hitting 7th, probably going to be lower owned than some of the other guys in this lineup, and just doesn't get the respect for the power that still exists in that bat going up against a guy with some power problems like Robbie Ray. You can definitely get away with something there. Any specific hitter that you wanted to call out from the San Francisco lineup going up against Darvish there that you said was a potential?
In this projected line or in the confirmed lineup, probably Flores or Belt. Jock's in the mix as well. I think Jock stole a base last night. I didn't know he could do that. And David Villar got his first win. He has big numbers in the minors, but I think Darvish is kind of a tricky enough pitcher that a rookie's not going to see him well in his first try. But I think Wilmer or Brandon Belt are 2 guys I would get to.
Yep, like both of those hitters, and Jock would have been my guy to throw into the mix there. Definitely always like grabbing shares of him at 4,400 on the DK slate, hitting 2nd, not a bad spot. All right, guys, hopefully that is enough of a little bit of an overview and a little OT there for you to cover that slate. But make sure you hit the like, hit the subscribe, see if I left any business on the table. Doesn't look like it, so make sure you're tuning in at 5 o'clock. That's about 45 minutes from now. MMA Live Before Lock with Jason Floyd and Pete the Heat. So check that out if you're playing the MMA slate. Make sure you tune into Stokastic shows and content tomorrow. Full day of action for all the different sports that are going on, but I don't have the schedule in front of me. Guys, we really appreciate it. Hit the like. Good luck tonight. We're out of here. Oh, wait, Gun, tell them where they can find you.
YouTube and twitter.com/GUNDACKER.
There you go. All right. Now we're out of here. Good luck, guys.